Okay, everybody, this is Brent from Firearms Safety Instruction, Corcoran, and I'm here with my friends up in Ely, Nick Ott, who's right here,
Hi,
who
everybody.
is now the owner of Pack-Sack Canoe Trips and Log Cabins, and we're at his parents' place up here, Gene and Jane, who I've known for a long, long time. Actually, ever since we went moose hunting in 2001. But we've got 3 deer, so we're going to show you how to process them. Now, this is a small one, and by design we chose this one just because it's going to be a little bit easier to see the different parts and things like that. But Nick has taken off all the skin already, and he's taken off one front quarter and one back quarter. Actually, the front leg, the back leg. 2 front quarters are already off. And you're taking off the back leg now.
And I'm just taking off the back leg now. It's kind of a little bit of a mess on this deer. But I just, kind of started cutting along that hip bone right here. We can do it on a different one to show a little bit better until you get to that ball socket. And then you can just easily cut that out. And then just right down along that back bone there.
Okay. Oh, light would be cool.
There, you got another removed back leg.
All right.
You got the carcass here.
Yep.
There's a little bit of fat on it, not too bad. You're gonna have to take a look to see exactly how bad those back straps are in there. But we can go in here and try and start taking one of these out.
And right now you're going right along the spine, right?
Right along the spine.
Okay. Both
Just kind
Nick
of
and...
get that tip of that knife in there, run it along that spine. You're gonna feel it bumping along each of the vertebrae. Just run that knife along there. Oh, this is soft meat. We got a lot of waste right here with that.
Damage from the bullet hole?
Damage from the bullet hole. I'm just gonna take this little strip off.
So prior to taking over the outfitting business from his parents, the BWC outfitting business, Nick was a meat cutter for several years down in the Mound area. And prior to Gene and Jane taking over this business in 1999? 2000 technically. Prior to them taking it over, they owned a meat cutting butcher shop sort of place down in Iowa, Meat Locker. And so this family knows quite a bit about cutting meat.
With dull knives.
With dull knives. Gene had a bit of a sharpener behind me here just a little while ago he was using. I'm going to move around to the other side here.
And you can see I've cut down along that backbone there.
Yeah.
Got it so that we can get the knife on both sides. And now we can start peeling that back strap out of there.
Now for kids who have no idea what you're doing, this is totally foreign to them, that piece right there, you just called it the back strap.
Yep.
What else can you teach us about the back strap?
Back strap is going to be one of the more tender parts and lean muscles of the animal. If you're thinking of like a cow, this would be where you find your New York strip or your ribeye from that what would be considered the back strap of a cow. Excellent meat. This is a younger deer, so it's going to be very tender. And you can feel how tender this deer is.
Probably the second most tender, high quality meat on the body, other than the tenderloins, which you'll get to next.
These are kind of messed up. I usually like to take these back straps out in one big nice piece, but since we've got some bullet holes here, or some damage and some waste, we gotta deal with that. Okay. This meat is exceptionally soft. You've got a young deer here. The meat itself, the animal hasn't seen a lot of stress, so you don't get a lot of meat out of shooting a younger deer, but you certainly do reap some benefits as far as tenderness and quality of meat goes. And I always feel it's best to point out that this is 100% wild, organic, grass-fed, non-GMO food that you can't get anything better than this in any grocery store out there.
Here?
Well, I guess it probably some grass, mostly pine and red twig basswood,
Dogwood.
dogwood
Good job.
trees, but still just top quality meat here. And I'm just getting this meat off of some of this tissue off of the sides of these rib cage.
And that meat right there, what's that normally used for?
This is kind of like plate meat right here. You know, a lot of times you would find like your flank steak or your skirt steak, that type of stuff in here. Up towards the front here, you've got your brisket, but you know, this is a pretty small deer. Even on a doe, you don't see a lot of that like flank or anything like that. It's real thin, but you know, you could certainly use it, like you say, pound it down a little bit and sear it in a frying pan or something like that.
Do like a country fried steak.
Country fried steak would be phenomenal.
But since this is so thin, is that even possible? Or is this best just to...
I think this is probably all just going to go into the trim or the grind.
Okay. Bigger deer, you might have something more
Bigger deer you can.
reasonable right there, but okay.
Like I say, I've had you know, moose flank, and that was top notch.
Okay. And so he pulled that off just right at the rib cage right there. That was that layer of meat and fat right at that. Now the other thing to say about fat is a lot of that gets trimmed off of the deer here. Whereas if you're having beef and things like that, you might leave some of the fat on because that adds to the flavor. Well, people in our society have gotten used to the taste of beef fat, and it tastes good to them. But they don't eat a lot of venison fat anymore, and so it tastes very odd and very strong to them. And so they like to get rid of it. And although it's if it were something you were to eat more of, you would probably grow used to the flavor. And in certain parts of the world where you need a lot of fat in your diet, you would grow used to it and help you survive. But in modern society, where we don't need to be eating as much fat because we get it from other places, butter and things like that, we can throw it away. So starting back up again here, you noticed just a moment ago I said a lot of people will throw that fat away. Well, if you're going to be respectful of the animal, honestly, you're going to want to try and use that fat if you can. One thing that a lot of people like to do is take that fat and put it in mesh onion bags and hang it out for the birds. White-breasted nuthatch, blue jays, lots of birds really struggle to get enough fat in their diet in the winter. And if you put those out in those mesh bags, that definitely helps them through the winter months. So it's a way of using that fat without throwing it away and having it go to waste. Okay.
Remember, Nate, moving to the floor. Don't let me forget. I should use that for dishes.
Right now Nick is pulling out the back strap from the other side. So he'll grab the back straps first, and then that flank meat from the rib cage will come next. Just a moment ago he was talking about the amount of damage, you know, caused by the rifle on some of that meat. And whether you buy into Nick's personal beliefs or not, you know, it's always interesting to hear someone's perspective. So Nick had said, you know, here's one reason to shoot your deer with a bow. You don't damage all this meat. And so lots of folks have different ideas and perspectives.
It's all
you know. And Nick, your beliefs are always right, correct?
According to me.
Everybody's beliefs.
And there's Jane. She and her husband Gene were the proprietors of PackSack for many years, and became good friends.
Now mentors.
Mentors to you or to me?
To Nick.
To
That's
me.
Brent. Brent's beyond mentoring.
Well, this was just pretty much just some plate meat. Pull it off of the ribs here.
Yep.
And this pretty much just trim. You know, you try and cut out any of that damaged meat that's on there.
Yep.
Separate any excess fat. This wasn't a real fatty deer.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot to have to deal with as far as fat goes, but just kind of some of that damaged meat you got to cut off of there. And that's trim, you know, and it's going to be ground deer or turn into hamburgers or chili or whatever you want.
Sure. You know, one of the things that I heard from my friend Mark that he likes to do is he likes to take that whole neck, cut that off, leave it bones in and everything. He'll trim off a little bit of the fat, but he'll put that in a slow cooker with a little beef broth, and he'll let it go and go and go until it completely all falls apart. And then he pulls out the bones and he adds a little vegetable, and he's got the best that he's ever had.
Neck roasts are phenomenal. This one's a little bit small. You wouldn't have gotten much of a nice neck roast, but if I would have left a little bit more of it on about right there,
sure,
you could cut it off at about right here, and you'd have a really nice neck roast.
Yeah, but
there's nothing wrong with
that's
them.
still not a bad size. I mean, that's enough meat for 2 people.
Yeah,
for a meal.
Absolutely, and it is very good meat. You know, I mean, it does. It takes a little while for it to break down, but I'm going to pull these tenders here, but there's not much to look at.
Okay. I still want you to describe where they are, though.
Yeah, the
If you don't mind.
tenderloins. No.
Let me see if I can get in there a different little angle.
Too, but the tenderloins are just going to sit right here. These 2 pieces of meat.
They're right on the other side of the spine.
Yep, on either side of the spine.
And
more towards the back of the deer.
And they basically touch up against where the kidneys once were.
Yep. And you just peel. Once again, find that backbone and just peel right on down. And pull. Peel and pull.
And this is the most tender part of
It's a tenderloin. It's kind of
the deer. Highest quality meat in the deer. And although this was a young deer and that doesn't look like a lot of meat, that's pretty high quality stuff right there.
And they should peel right out. Kind of like that one did.
Yeah.
We've got the rib meat right here. You know, on a bigger deer, it's probably a little bit more worth it to go in and dig these out. This is a pretty small deer, and you're really not going to get a significant amount of meat out of it. You know, it's not a bad idea to go through and do them, though, just because, you know, as you said, it is important to respect the fact that, you know, this animal gave its life for us, and to waste a single bit of it is not necessarily cool. So it just takes a second to get your knife in there, cut that rib meat out.
Sure.
And you know, it's out of a deer like this, you might get about a pound's worth of ground venison out of it. And what the heck, you know, that's
a meal.
It's $20 to somebody. You going?
Yeah.
Let's clean this up quick. I'm cutting up these back straps now. I've cut this one up already. I butterflied them, and I'll kind of go through that with you here. It's not a very big deer again, so you're not looking at real huge chops that you're going to get off of it. First, I like to take the silver skin off. Usually, if I've got a sharper knife, it works a little bit better than what this one is. Again, these are like the second most tender, best part meat-wise that you can get out of a deer. This is back straps that's a little bit more cleaned up here. And when I say butterfly, that's just kind of it. You make a little butterfly out of the chop versus just cutting straight through like that and having a deer chop. When you butterfly, you go about 90% of the way through, stop, and then take another cut all the way down. And that just gives you a little bit more a little bit bigger of a chop. Real convenient if it's, especially when you have a little bit smaller deer like this. That's a just absolutely phenomenal looking piece of meat. Oh, that,
Fantastic. Good tasting too, right?
mm-hmm.
Okay.
This one's separated from the whole carcass.
Can you bring up that back lower portion so they can actually see what that means? Oh,
This?
there we go. Yeah.
Yep.
Where you got your
This is where
right
the leg
hand
came
there.
down right here.
Yep.
You know, that's just sits.
And that's a big hunk of muscle right there.
Yep. Yep. You can see where it's connected here at the hip.
Yep, that's the
And
ball.
there's typically a couple of different muscles and a couple of muscle groups in, you know, around. You've got an inside, you've got like a sirloin tip, and then you've got a bottom round, and then typically like an eye of round. Something so small like this, it's kind of hard to tell. You know, this would be your bottom round right here. If this was a beef, a lot of people will, you know, use that as like a rump roast or something like that.
Sure.
Here's an eye of round, very lean piece of meat, and then top round. This stuff makes excellent jerky. You know, if you're looking to make your own beef jerky or something
Yep.
like that, you can cut them into chops or stew meat, anything like that. Really, you know, works really well with these.
And point to where each of those three sections come from in that quarter that you're
So-
touching right there.
Right here, you've got your bottom round. All right. Just trying to see here. Sirloin tip is here, bottom round. It's kind of hard to see where the eye of round fits in there. Let me cut into this a little bit. If you're ever looking to do this yourself, you can just kind of get in there and you can start to seam things out. When I say seam things out, you can see right here is like a little bit of a seam where the muscle tissue breaks. You know, just kind of cut along that a little bit until you can start to work your fingers in there. And then you can just kind of pull away and get yourself down to that bone. Probably a lot of cutting.
Do you have anything else there for me to wrap?
Do you want roast or do you just want this in the stew?
Let's just do stew meat.
Okay.
If we want roast, we'll get it from the next one.
Okay. Let me just get these separated quick. I like to take though just the whole thing right off of that bone. In one big piece.
Would this deer be best for a roast, Nick?
Those would be some good roasts. I mean,
All
they're
right,
a
maybe
little
we should do
small.
it with this one.
You know, I can
Well,
certainly
for two of us,
clean this one up. This would be perfect.
for two of us, that's all we need.
You know.
And it's good quality meat.
Yeah,
Nice,
that'd be better than
tender,
a
tasty.
big
Yeah.
old buck, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Do you want the fat left on or do you want this fat all off?
Yeah, you can, wouldn't we want it on?
I'll leave it a little on for you.
So what have I got here? Are these?
Got a bottom round. I'll cut these two into.
All right.
And I'll get you another roast off of this one. It's good to have a good knife when doing this. This is a Victorinox. It's got a nice stiff blade to it, so it
Looks like a fillet knife.
kind of. I mean, this is a meat guy, so this is our good old called these boning knives.
Okay.
And this is basically what these knives are meant for, is taking the meat off the bones.
even though I see the bone coming into play, the rest of it looks kind of like a crazy mess, and I'm not even sure. Oh, now, but when you lay it out like that, then I can see it again.
Just about separated here.
Okay.
There's that piece. Now this is just part of the shank right here. Cut that off, and you can either use that for stew meat if you want to. It's just it's got a lot of, it's really chewy. You know, you've got a lot of ligament and stuff that runs through that piece, so that's not really a good one. And then kind of looking at this, here are these kind of seams that I was talking about.
Oh yeah, I see
them. Kind of get in there.
I see
You
them.
know, you can really separate that muscle tissue pretty easily. Pull apart your different inside or top rock. That's
I'll
the
be
top
darned.
piece. Over here we've got a. If you ever go to a grocery store and look at the beef section again, this would be known as a sirloin tip or a sirloin tip steak. It can be left as a roast, or you can cut, you know, steaks out of it all the way down.
Wow.
I'm going to leave this one as a roast. And then, as I was talking, you've got your eye of round. This little piece of meat I'm going to cut off here. There. Eye of round. Got your bottom round, a top round, and a sirloin tip. It's your musculature.
Wow.
Hind quarter.
And then in the other part of that bone that's remaining, the meat that's on there, that's
This is the
just
shank.
that's just stew meat, or is
Normally stew meat, but there are some people that will do a lot of different things with these. I mean, you could, if you know how to make ossobuco, you could cut that baby in half.
what did you call it?
Ossobuco? Isn't that what it's called? Ossobuco?
I don't know.
Beef shank ossobuco, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've never done that. That's not something I would know if I would do, but the world is your oyster.
Just wanted you to. I just wanted to make sure you weren't saying a naughty word, because I'd never heard that word before, and I still might have to look it up and maybe edit this video later.
You need to look it up and cook it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That, you know, it's, you know, kind of cook it down and gets that bone marrow out of the bone and adds the flavor.
Oh, see, I like the idea of that.
I think we'll. It's a nice roast.
Beautiful.
And then stew meat.
So down here he's got a bucket, and he's got stew meat going on the sides, and then we've got a bag here, actually just a birdseed bag, that he's throwing the bone and the fat and things like that he doesn't want, and keeping it all organized.
Get this stuff for you, because you probably won't